So I'm making this video because a viewer called Matthew assumed that I was wrong about something in one of my recent videos. So when you hold the true key of wisdom, you can open any door. For example, right when I saw the word Matthew, I knew that it came from Maat, and I knew it came from the goddess Ma'at, which was the ancient Egyptian goddess of truth and justice. Ma'at's symbols were the symbol of the feather of truth, which was actually the feather of an ostrich. And her other symbol is the symbol of the scales, the balancing scales of judgment. So the judgment of Ma'at is the afterlife. When one was deceased, they would weigh their heart against the feather of the ostrich feather of Ma'at. If the deceased's heart weighed the same or less than the ostrich feather, then they could go on to the afterlife, basically. So if their heart was heavier, though, that means they didn't leave a good life. Therefore, they had to remain in Duat. Anyway, so I knew that the symbols of Ma'at, or Ma'at, however you want to say it, the goddess of truth and justice, I knew that had to be related to the word Matthew, or Mat. So I immediately went to YouTube and I just wanted to watch a quick video about Matthew and just see if I could pick up on something. And within a split second, I found exactly what I thought I would find, which is the same symbolism attached to Matthew as that of Ma'at. So I clicked on the video, and within just a minute, I saw this scene that you're about to see.
Matthew, come.
That's correct, folks. Immediately, we see the symbolism of the balancing scales of Ma'at, as we're talking about how Jesus is recruiting Matthew to be one of his 12 helpers. Exactly like the 12 judges of the weighing of the heart against the ostrich feather of Ma'at, the judgment. And of course, this is why the United States Department of Justice has Lady Justice, and why we have a jury, or judges, of 12. So our truth and justice system is built upon the ancient Egyptian Ma'at judgment. So as I've explained in my videos, all of this symbolism is actually all astrological, astrotheological. And the symbolism that we find in all of this is actually the symbolism of the zodiac and the seasons. So it's the bi-season of 2, winter and summer, and then the red and the blue. And then we have the 12 houses of the zodiac, which is why there are 12 tribes of Israel. And of course, the house of Dan has the house of the scales, which is why the zodiac wheel also has the house of the scales. And of course, what does the house of Dan mean? It means judgment. And of course, in the Bible, we find that the bull god, which is the same as the Egyptian pantheon, they were all bull gods related to the bull with horns. The bull god of the Bible with horns. Judges, which is why there's a book of Judges in the Bible. So by the way, Ma'at holds the symbol of the was and the ankh, which are both symbols of the bull. So as I've explained before in my previous videos, that Hathor and Ma'at and Isis are actually the aspect of the goddess, or the mother, which is why our English word, our current word today of mother, comes from the goddess Ma'at. Thus the matriarch of the goddess. Thus the reason that we call our mothers Ma or Mama, the M-A. So now you will understand why we have Mother Mary, the M-A. thus the red Bloody Mary of Mars and March, thus the spring lamb, mother had a little lamb. So like I've explained in my videos before, the matriarchy is the mother, M-A, Ma, and the tree, the actual T, or the tree, M-Ma'at. Okay, it's the goddess of the forest, or the earth goddess. And since ancient times, she was always worshipped as a tree, thus the Asherah pole, or tree. And of course, the tree of knowledge in the Bible, and the goddess associated with the tree. And of course, this ancient knowledge of the tree connected with nature held the ancient esoteric wisdom of the mother and father tree. Thus we have a family tree. And of course we have the ancient druidic order that worship the tree, the sacred tree. Thus the so-called paganism that worships nature. But in reality, all the religions do. And I've also showed how the bull, the B-O-L-E, is related to the B-U-L-L, and it's related to the tree and the bull. So this brings us to the druid elder, the wise one, the old man, or the old druid. Thus the drew wood of the tree. Thus the word truth, which comes from true, which comes from drew, the druid. Thus the tree of knowledge. And by the way, some other words that are related to the goddess Ma'at, the goddess aspect of the M-A, the Ma, the mother, is mate, as well as the month of May. Thus the maypole, which the month of May is the astrological house of Taurus, the bull. And again, proving my earlier conviction that Ma, the mother, is related to Macy's, the month of May, the goddess, 5. So the consort of Ma'at was the god Thought, or Thoth, the god of wisdom, thus thoughts of the mind, the mental aspect. So the Hebrew word for truth is Amet. It is spelled the AMT, or the Alpha, Mem, and Tav. So we can clearly see the AMT can be pronounced as Amat. In Hebrew, it's pronounced Ameth. So here is some more philosophical wisdom. So the year, or the season, is divided in two between the spring and autumn equinoxes. Thus the scales of Libra. The judgment to the underworld when the season goes into wintertime, or hell, or the devil time of darkness and evilness and death. So the autumn and spring equinoxes of Libra and Aries is the division between life and death on Mother Earth. So the word Libra actually gives us our word liberty. Liberty is kind of like a get out of jail free card. In other words, you're not really free. You're liberated from the chains that bind you. So perhaps now you'll understand why we have the Libra statue that we know called the Statue of Liberty, that holds her eternal flame for the underworld, because she has been liberated from her chains of captivity. So remember that I said that Libra is the 7th house, or September, the septum. Thus, the Statue of Liberty has 7 spikes on her head. And in case you missed that, if you look at the tablet, or the tablet of destiny, you'll notice that it says July, the 7th month. So now you'll understand why the house of Dan, of the 12 tribes of Israel, the house of judgment, and its symbol is the scales, you'll understand why Dan was the 7th one to be blessed. So like I've explained many times about this dualistic principle of the as above, so below, the red and the blue, the black and white, day and night, winter, summer, these are the Bibles, the bull of heaven, the bull of hell. It is the division. Thus the very meaning of the zodiac, which is the zoo, the animal that is cut in half, just like the biblical stories of everything being divided in two. So the 4 seasons are created through the division or the cutting or the slicing of the solstice, plus the division of the equinox of spring and autumn. Thus, these 2 cuts or divisions gives us our symbol of the cross of the zodiac. So the equinox gives us our symbol of the equal, because this is the time of balance. Okay? This is a time when things are even or parallel. Thus the 11 or the L even. And that's why the statue of Libra, the goddess of the underworld, is surrounded by the 11s. Just like the 11-foot tall bull on Wall Street. So now that you grasp some of those concepts, let's get back to Matthew. So earlier I basically showed that Matthew is basically the same as Mayat. And notice the Hebrew spelling of the Mat, It, Yahu. So the goddess Mayat, and then Matthew of the Bible is pronounced Matthios. But the root word comes from Mattathias. And don't forget that Mayat is actually spelled with the M-A-T, Mat. So like I said, the goddess Mayat, the goddess of truth and justice, balance and order of the seasons and of the people. Thus we have the symbol of the scales, which I told you is the same symbolism that I found right away, instantly, within the first minute of research. I see the symbol associated with Matthew, the tax collector. So let me explain to you about taxing. Taxing is cutting, okay? It's axing it in 2, the T-ax, or the slice, the dice, which is why they're taking their cut along the way. So now you'll understand why we have an Earth axis, thus the separation, just like the 7 and the 1 that divides the year, thus the goddess and her little lamb. So tax or taxing has to do with fertility, as you see. Thus that's why we say, I tax that ass. So this little ladybug right here is taxing that ass because he wants his cut or his piece of the pie. And the polar opposite of fertility or life is death. Thus we say, I tax that ass, means you killed them. So now you'll understand why X relates to death. And of course, it relates to life or sex. Thus it's rated X, the X and the O's. And of course, the bull with its balls cut off, or the fertility cut off, is the ox, or the oxy, which means sliced or cut. Perhaps now you'll understand the Boston Tea Party. Remember during December or Xmas? And like I said, Boston means the bull or the ox. And of course, Boston is all related to taxing and the Tea Party that was cut with axes. Thus the Tea Party, Occupy Wall Street, the goddess who rode the bull. So now you understand the Liberty Tree of Boston, thus the Sons of Liberty and the T-Ax. So now you know why all the tax propaganda back then was all about the cutting, the slicing, and the dicing, the taxing of the axe. And of course the goddess Tiamat was cut in 2. Thus she was sliced in 2 by the axe. So now you'll understand the truth of teabagging. So it's funny that people don't understand the truth about the Bible, let alone the story of Matthew, and why he was an evangelist. He was one of the 4 evangelists, because Matthew represents one of the 4 angles, or the 4 angels, thus the 4 seasons of the zodiac. That's why the word evangelist has the word even in it. The even, the ang, and the el. And that's the whole meaning of an angel. Thus, the Messiah, the Anointed One. It is the Shedu. It is the Malach. It is the Lamasu. So the roots of the angel leads back to this creature right here. The creature with 4 attributes, which is the ancient Babylonian winged bull, the lion, and the human, as well as the eagle, which all represent the cross of the zodiac. Thus Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So now you know the truth about what an evangelist is and what an angel is and what Matthew is. And of course now you'll know why they're talking all about the Sabbath, the sacrifice, because it means even. It means like the time of even, or the time of evening, when it turns dark from sun to darkness, one day, like the goddess Eve, evening. And of course now you understand the truth about the leavened and unleavened bread of the season.